Hello, everyone. My name is Ezra, otherwise known as E-Soup. Today is a big day. Psyching, you've got your popcorn and soda. Yeah. I'm a little scared of the fact that you said that because I know that you know spoilers. I'm like, what is in store for us today? Hi, Henry. Oh no. She cased on my file till I become blind in both eyes, I guess. Listen, we're not there yet. Oh, you need to get popcorn too? Is everyone going to be eating popcorn today? So, if anyone didn't know, we are finishing volume 4 of Case File today. And then we are going on a break from Case File, and we are going back to QJJ for 4 volumes after this. So, yeah, I was saying, and Lanjade was saying in Discord, that she's, fingers are crossed for all of you that you don't hit a horrible cliffhanger at the end of this book, and that's how I've been feeling, and hopefully, you know, we're not jinxed, but I am afraid of us getting to a cliffhanger at the end of this volume, because there will just be absolutely nothing that I can do about it but wait for 4 months. Hi, Nina. You were just watching, I knew what that stood for, but then I forgot. Oh, Veil of Shadows. You were just watching Veil of Shadows with Law and R, which also had a cliffhanger. Ugh, of course. Oh, it's Volume 7 release day of QJJ today. That's awesome. So, apologies, I'm scattered today. Today earlier, I tried to film a reaction video, and I had just been messing with some settings in OBS, my, like, recording software. And, long story short, there's a thing that I should have set a certain way, and I didn't, and it had never been a problem before, but, like, the program crashed, and I lost my file, and I have to re-react to that episode again, and I'm so mad about it. So I'm just... Oh, you watched my Mad Woman video today. Yeah, that was such a great music video. That was so unexpected, honestly. I just saw it pop up on YouTube, and I was like, oh, I need to see this. Yes, Henry, your Yowies are on the Volume 7 cover of QJJ. I'm celebrating them. Gosh, I can't wait till we get there. It'll be a while. Oh, thank you, Henry. So today, like I said, we're finishing Volume 4, which means we're reading chapters 117 through 120, and then there is a Meat Bun mini theater at the end again. I wish that was a guarantee that there will be no cliffhanger, but of course there could be. It could be like a total cliffhanger, and then it's like, and now an extra. Just, why not? So, please give the stream a like, and I am gonna get started, and we are on page 411 for chapter 117. Which is called Guh, You're So Good at Driving. Which I was saying last time, I believe might be about how they need to, I don't know, grab a car and drive away really quickly. Because they just, Xie Ching Chung just got caught discovering the body. Oh, okay. What are you looking at? But the person outside the door was talking to He Yu, not Xie Ching Chung. Oh my god. Okay. He Yu had finished examining his side of the floor uneventfully. Upon reaching the end of the long hallway, he also saw the staircase leading to the attic. He was about to climb it when a hand landed on his shoulder. He immediately turned around to see a woman who bore some resemblance to Lu Yuju. But she definitely wasn't the mysterious person from last night. Yu froze in surprise, an unpleasant conjecture occurring to him. You're Yi Ah-wen? Wait, so we're saying that the woman that he saw last night was not Yi Ah-wen? That's me, the woman replied, looking him up and down suspiciously. Did you need something from me? Even though her answer had dashed his hopes, he still quickly pulled himself together and responded smoothly. Not really. It's just that this place is called Ah-wen Salon, you know, and it's clear that you're the boss. Yi Ah-wen didn't indulge him. What are you doing here? I'm looking for my friend. He went to the bathroom a while ago. I'm worried he got lost. The two of them weren't far from the attic. Yu raised his voice on purpose so that Xie Qingcheng could hear him from upstairs. The bathroom is downstairs, not upstairs, said Yi Ah-wen. Oh, Yu responded. Then I'll check downstairs. It's my first time here. I didn't know. Yi Ah-wen still hadn't let her guard down. Where are you from? The neighboring Zhuang family village. I came to see my relatives. Yu feigned nonchalance, leering crassly at Yi Ah-wen as he spoke. Jie, the girls in this place of yours are really great, very talented. Not like the ones back home. They charge 100 or more, but they have a bad attitude. They won't even talk to you. Yi Ah-wen gave him a mechanical, bland smile, but there was hidden contempt in her gaze as she looked at Yu. I'm glad you're having a good time. In the middle of their conversation, the attic door suddenly swung open with a creak. Yi Ah-wen jumped, her eyes flashing with an ominous light as she looked toward the top of the stairs. The first thing that appealed in her field of view was a well-worn white cane. The cane tentatively tapped on the steps, taking its time to cautiously and deftly explore the contours, before at last a foot stepped down very carefully to land on the wooden stair. Then, the cane inched down again. The stairwell was very dim, and it wasn't until he felt his way to the bottom of the staircase that the man's face emerged from the shadows, and Yi Ah-wen got a good look at him. Other than his tall, upright physique, he looked like any ordinary farmer from this area. The man was blind, his open ash-gray eyes entirely vacant. All the muscles in Yi Ah-wen's body had been tensed, but when she realized that this man couldn't see, she relaxed slightly. However, she still stared at him unblinkingly, watching him draw closer step by step. The man had a waxy yellow complexion and average looks, but his voice was extremely pleasant, like a lake on a still day, smooth as glass. I heard people down here. Is the bathroom downstairs? I'm sorry, I went the wrong way. Before Yi Ah-wen had the chance to reply, Yu leapt forward and took Xie Qingcheng's arm. This is my friend, he explained to Yi Ah-wen. Remember how I told you I was looking for someone? I was looking for him. He turned to Xie Qingcheng. Ge, why didn't you come back and ask me if you couldn't find the bathroom? What are you trying to prove on your own out here? Come on, I'll take you downstairs. Xie Qingcheng threw off his hand without missing a beat. Even while playing this kind of role, he somehow managed to preserve his everyday coldness, putting on a stubborn elder brother act. No need, I've got it. Oh, you've got it? Save that for the girls back in the room, all right? Don't get all stubborn with me. Careful. After me. Stop pulling on me, Xie Qingcheng said coldly, half feigning and half serious. Sorry for the trouble, Wenjie. Yu turned back to apologize to Yi Ah-wen as he and Xie Qingcheng moved together down the stairs. We'll stop bothering you. Watching the stubborn man use his cane to feel down the hallway, Yi Ah-wen couldn't see anything amiss. She felt a slight relief. She'd returned just in time, she thought. If the man who could see had gone upstairs, he might have found something she needed to keep hidden. She nodded perfunctorily at the two men before immediately turning around and heading up the stairs to make sure everything was all right. I see. Now, she's going to go up the stairs and she's going to see what, didn't Xie Qingcheng, like, expose part of the wall or something? I don't know if he left it the way that it was when he first Arrived. As soon as she turned away, Xie Qingcheng's lips moved slightly as he spoke in a voice so soft only He Yu could hear it. We need to get out of here. She killed someone. He Yu's grip on Xie Qingcheng's arm tightened. Yi Awen entered the attic. The room still looked just as it had before. That blind man must have just walked in and fumbled around before realizing he'd come to the wrong place and going back downstairs. She let out the breath she was holding. But just as she was about to leave again, she remembered something that made all the blood in her body run cold. Her pulse instantly skyrocketed as a manic voice seemed to scream in her head. Stop him! Stop them! Something was wrong. Very wrong. Yi Awen's pupils contracted as realization dawned on her. That blind man had been wearing something that a person who lost their sight would never use. A watch. He was wearing a watch. Ugh, they should have thought of that. Oh, man. She'd noticed it as soon as he came down the stairs, but at first she'd only felt a vague sense of unease without realizing what it meant. Why would a person who couldn't see wear a watch? Who would it be for? Yi Awen ran over and wildly shoved the bookshelf to the side. Then she saw it. There, in the section of wall that she had patched up over Yi Qiang's body, there was a hole. Through that opening, her father's decomposing leg was clearly visible. You know, if he's decomposing in there, I'm wondering, like, what was she planning to do with his body as far as disposing of it, and when? Because it seems like it's been there a while. Oh yeah, Psykeen, technically you can get watches that talk. I assume that, like, that would be... Is that just, like, smartwatches? Or do they make, like, regular-looking watches that can do that? Because I assume, like, she probably looked at it and it didn't look, I don't know, like a smartwatch with the voice. But that's a good point. They could, I guess, if... if only they had the chance to use that excuse. Blood surging through her veins. Yi Awen was overcome by shock and fury as she whipped around, flung open the door, and rushed down the stairs. Her motorcycle was parked outside, unlocked as usual. When she stopped by the salon at this hour, it was only for a quick check-in after all. They're getting on the motorcycle. I thought it was going to be a car. They're getting on the motorcycle. Oh god, I can see that there's art on the next page, I think. Xie Qingcheng swung his leg over the motorcycle. Get on, he said to He Yu. You know how to drive a motorcycle? Asked He Yu. I've even driven a police motorcycle before. Yi Awen sprinted downstairs, her face incandescent with fury as she appeared in the doorway. Her younger sister seemed utterly bemused. Jie, why are you? She asked nervously, ashen-faced. Yi Awen didn't answer her. Like a falcon reaching for its prey, she lunged forward. At almost precisely the same moment, He Yu got behind Xie Qingcheng on the motorcycle. Hold on tight, said Xie Qingcheng in a low voice. Before He Yu had time to react, his Xiege twisted the throttle and sent the motorcycle plunging into the darkness with a roar. It wasn't until he'd gotten onto a motorcycle behind Xie Qingcheng that He Yu realized just how unrestrained he was being. And just how excellent his driving was, too. He whizzed down the unpaved mountain paths like they were pancake-flat roads, but the combination of the adrenaline and the breakneck speed made the steeper sections feel as weightless as freefall. I would be crying and throwing up on the back of that motorcycle, I can tell you that much. The red needle on the dash veered frantically to the right, the chilly springtime wind whipping loudly through their clothes. Oh my god, the art. Oh my god, okay. Oh god. After the initial tension wore off, He Yu realized he still had his arms tight around Xie Qingcheng's waist. He Yu is a lunatic. Even at a critically dangerous moment, his mind remained unaffected by the death-defying speed. His head was perfectly clear as he thought. This was the first time since the club. No, since he and Xie Qingcheng first parted ways, that Xie Qingcheng had asked He Yu to hold him. It didn't matter that they were fleeing for their lives. Hold on to me a bit tighter. Huh? Hold me tighter. Yu was practically bowled over by this display of sentiment. But a second later, the motorcycle suddenly soared into the air, its immense momentum propelling it over an abandoned roadblock, and nearly throwing Yu off the back. Yu cried out, "Be careful!" But before the last syllable left his mouth, the motorcycle had already flown 100 meters ahead. Yu was shocked, speechless. On a motorcycle, Xie Qingcheng was just as good as a trained police officer. Yu even began to suspect that he must have used these skills to pick up girls long ago. How else would he have gotten so good? Yu was a fast and steady driver, but only behind the wheels of sports cars and luxury cars. Motorcycles were too athletic and unrefined. Yu wasn't familiar with them and had never driven one before. In the blink of an eye, they had already reached the barren mountains outside the village. Everyone, it's time to look at the art. I cannot deal. Just fully in the air. He is too dainty and refined for a motorcycle. He needs Xiega. Yes. God, that's terrifying. These mountains on the border of Qingli County were truly desolate. They were nothing like the little hills that were common in the southern part of the country, from which the city lights could still be seen. Each of these peaks was like a wild beast hibernating in the darkness. When the night wind blew, the forest's susurrations sounded like their guttural sighs. Xie Qingcheng shot a cool glance behind them. Now that he wasn't pretending to be blind, it was impossible for those gray contacts to completely conceal the dagger-like sharpness of his gaze. He spotted the light of another motorcycle on the mountain path behind them. Yi Awen was a local who knew all the shortcuts, after all. Having already found another bike, she was currently in hot pursuit, doggedly tailing them like a madwoman. The two motorcycles sped across more than a dozen kilometers as if they were participating in a cross-country race. Even the heavens sought to join in on the fun. A bolt of lightning suddenly split open the overcast skies, immediately followed by a roll of thunder. And with that, the rain of the year's first spring thunderstorm began to pour down. The raindrops pitter-pattered noisily, washing the makeup off their faces and the dust off the mountain roads. The path quickly became very muddy, and as they rode deeper into the wilderness, it became more and more difficult to navigate. Looking up, they could only see the majestic sky and endless barrens, bereft of any sign of human habitation. But to Yi Awen, who had lived here all her life, this place was very familiar. Oh, Henry, not 50 miles an hour on a small street. Yeah, no thanks. Now, Yu and Xie Qingcheng could clearly hear the roar of her motorcycle's engine. She must have taken one of the steep cutoff routes to make up some of the ground between them. Yu couldn't help but ask Xie Qingcheng, "Do you know these roads? Where are we going?" "The police station in town." Yu's heart plummeted. He wasn't reassured in the slightest. "Is it this way?" "Yes," Xie Qingcheng replied. "I checked a couple of days ago." He actually knew where they were. Yi Awen must have figured out Xie Qingcheng's intentions. She kicked into a higher gear, urging the motorcycle forward at top speed. When Yu snuck a backward glance, her figure was completely enshrouded by the motorcycle's headlight, making it look like there was a raging fireball pelting after them. I don't like the sound of that. As she drew closer and closer, she reached down to grab something tucked at the small of her back. Oh god. Oh no. She was still a little ways off, and Yu couldn't clearly make out the object in the pouring rain and glaring light, but something tugged at a nerve in his head. In the basement of the university archives, the woman who resembled Yi Awen had done the same thing, reaching for something kept at the small of her back. Yu suddenly put two and two together. "Xie Qingcheng," he cried out. "Be careful. She has a gun." At nearly the same moment, they heard the bang of a gun going off. As the sound echoed between the mountains and valleys, Yi Awen lifted the smoking pistol. Just like her mother, she had fired a bullet at He Yu and Xie Qingcheng. I still keep thinking about the fact that Yi Awen is not the woman that He Yu saw who had the files on her. And I'm like, who in God's name could that be then? There's it's gonna be some kind of weird twist about that. As soon as she shot it, Xie Qingcheng realized that Yi Awen's gun was likely a crude homemade weapon. That's good, I guess? The noise it made was loud and harsh, but its range was far worse than a properly manufactured firearms would be. Hi, Blue. That type of gun usually couldn't hold many bullets at a time. It would need to be reloaded after every 3 rounds or so. With this deduced, Xie Qingcheng arched his back like a cheetah and accelerated along a serpentine pathway that would give them the best chance of evading the gunfire. With that kind of weapon, even a specialized police officer wouldn't necessarily be able to hit their target. Luck was always a major factor. Yi Awen evidently realized this too, as she stopped trying to aim in the downpour. Lu Yuju hadn't raised her herself, but nature worked in mysterious ways. Her genes had given her some of her mother's personality. When faced with a critical situation, both mother and daughter had the exact same reaction. They started shooting indiscriminately. Bang, bang, bang. Bang, bang, bang. As if the gunfire in the archives was ringing out in unison. As if everything were hurtling down the same old tracks. The silence that followed was the same, too. The Liu family's mother and daughter were both extremely lucky in some respects. The chaotic barrage of bullets managed to strike those 2 extremely unlucky men. A screeching pop rang out. Yi Awen had pierced the wheel of Xie Qingcheng's motorcycle. The tire exploded, and the force of it and the resulting drag countered their massive momentum like one terrible dragon fighting another in the deep sea, emitting ear-splitting roars as they clashed fiercely. The motorcycle spun fully out of control, throwing its riders into the air. The bike itself surged ahead, splattering rain and mud everywhere, until it careened over the lip of the road and tumbled down, down, down. Boom. The gas tank must have been damaged in the fall, because about half a minute later, despite the wind and rain, the flames of an explosion suddenly lit up the slope. Black smoke billowed upward, as if trying to strangle the downpour with its scorched vapors. Xie Qingcheng had been hurled next to a boulder by the path. The fall had bruised his internal organs, and he coughed up a mouthful of blood. I'm sorry, but there's something so funny about people coughing up blood in, like, a non-cultivation novel. Like, no, that's actually serious. It's actually serious this time. You're actually coughing up blood because of your internal organs. Great. Yeah, great. Exactly, Henry. Great. Fiercely wiping blood away, he looked up with utmost calm to discover that He Yu had been thrown even further than him. The centrifugal force had tossed He Yu nearly over the edge of a precipitously sheer cliff. A single crooked pine tree in front of him was the only thing preventing him from tumbling down. He Yu struggled to grab onto that tree, trying to pull himself onto safer ground as the sound of footsteps splashing in the mud drew closer. Finally, a pair of black leather women's shoes stepped in front of him. He Yu looked up. Against a backdrop of sheeting rain, he met Yi Awen's terrifyingly cold eyes. A second later, Yi Awen lifted her foot and ferociously stomped on the hand He Yu was using to grip that tree. That's the end of the chapter. I'm just going to say this right now. Thank God that's not the end of this book. Imagine No, but imagine this book ending on a literal cliffhanger. Literally, like, I would die. Okay. We're on page 423 for chapter 118, which is called Xie Ching Chung. Why did you have to treat me like that? I guess Yu is still fixated on Xie Ching Chung and not whatever is happening to him right now. Yi Awen's stomp was heavy and ruthless, and her boots had a small heel. Yu heard a brittle cracking noise from his own finger, the sound of the bone breaking. Blood gushed out of the gash she'd caused. Luckily, Yu had been used to minor injuries since he was little, and this sort of ordeal wasn't a big deal for him. He persisted in clinging to the pine tree's roots, gritting his teeth as he started to climb. Henry, he said, "Fuck my broken hand, babe. Are you mad at me?" I know, minor injuries. This is not a minor injury. Yi Awen narrowed her eyes as she caught sight of Yu's real face through the torrential rain. "You think you're so brave, little brat, coming to my place in disguise. What are you trying to do?" This woman is hopeless, Yu thought. She really expected him to honestly explain himself while she was trying to kick him off a cliff. Her EQ was even lower than her mother's. But because he didn't want to be stepped on again, Yu answered. "I came to investigate some matters involving your mom." "No, fuck your mom," Yi Awen cried. "You're literally facing death, and you still have the nerve to make stupid jokes?" "Who's making jokes? I said I came to investigate matters involving your mom, your actual mother." Yi Awen blinked in confusion. "My mom?" Then, like a moth struggling free of its cocoon, eager to cast off its past, her expression became even more forbidding. "No, I don't have a mom. I'm talking about Lu Yuju. I don't care who you're talking about. She's not my mom. She's not my mom." The hottest flames of hell could leap from the eyes of a person in the throes of fury. Yi Awen dragged Yu into her personal hell, gritting out each word with deliberate emphasis. "Forget it. I don't care what you came here to do. You saw something you weren't supposed to, so both of you are going to die." As she spoke, she raised her gun again. As expected, it was a crude homemade firearm. She lifted the weapon and shook out the used casing, swapping in a new makeshift cartridge. With a click, Yi Awen loaded the gun, bending down to press the pitch-black muzzle to Yu's forehead. "Sorry, little brother. It's time for me to send you to hell. I just want to live a good life. I can't have you messing that up." Croaking her finger, she pulled the trigger. Bang. Just as the flint sparked, Yi Awen was ferociously shoved to the ground, splattering mud everywhere. Her arm was knocked aside at the last instant before she shot Yu. Oh god, okay. The wording of this sentence... The wording of this sentence is a little... Her arm was knocked aside at the last instant before she shot Yu dead at point-blank range. I know it's saying she was knocked aside before she could shoot him, but it sounds like she did shoot him anyway. Yeah, no, it is very cool that she just made a gun. Any gun that works. That's impressive. Xie Ching-chung grappled with her on the muddy ground. He had crawled over despite his injuries. See, whatever Yu ends up feeling salty about later in this chapter, I'm like, he's saving you. He saved you from dying. Like, calm down. Although Xie Ching-chung's physical condition had declined in recent months, his wrestling technique was still formidable. Bending his long legs, we take a drink. Bending his long legs, he pinned Yi Awen down in a mud puddle just as lightning split the sky. The view of the sprawling wilderness of the Loess Hills bracketed by the endless heavens and earth was more stunning than any cityscape. The bolt of lightning seemed to rend the fabric of the cosmos, like a sword being plunged into an abyss. I don't like the sound of that in a meat bun novel, particularly. When that flash of electricity lit Xie Chingchung's face, Yi Awen met his eyes. And just like her mother seeing him in the archives, her heart shuddered uncontrollably. Even blunted by the gray contacts obscuring his eyes, once he stopped holding back, this man's aura was so imposing that it shook her to the core. Thunder rumbled in the distance. The deep sound rolled over the clouds, seeming to increase the pressure on her trembling heart. As the early spring storm raged, the wheel of fortune seemed to stop on the same space as before. Xie Qingcheng held Yi Awen's hand down just like he'd once held down Lu Yuju's, when she, too, had been gripping a gun. The girl's hand shook as she struggled, but once she got over her initial shock, she suddenly remembered what she needed to do. Her silhouette overlapped with her mother's. She tried to lift the hand that Xie Qingcheng was pinning down. But Xie Qingcheng was too strong, and she couldn't throw him off. She desperately glanced in He Yu's direction, but when she caught sight of his predicament, her pupils suddenly contracted. Then she threw her head back and began to laugh. Xie Qingcheng didn't respond. Yi Awen leered. "You'd better let go of me right away, otherwise you'll regret it." Sensing that something was wrong, Xie Qingcheng jerked his head to the side. It was He Yu. The pine tree that He Yu grabbed onto hadn't been sturdy to begin with, but Yi Awen had fired a shot into its hollow trunk, and cracks were spreading through the wood like a sheet of ice splintering. Even someone who was actually half blind would be able to tell that the tree was about to break. He Yu was clutching that swaying, teetering tree, staring at them both in silence. Xie Qingcheng had to make a choice. If he went to pull He Yu up right now, Yi Awen would use this opportunity to open fire on them again. She would definitely shoot Xie Qingcheng. But if Xie Qingcheng continued to wrestle for the gun with Yi Awen, He Yu might not be able to hold on for much longer. He would fall into the chasm below with that broken hunk of wood. Wait, I have a theory about what the chapter title might turn out to mean. I'm not going to say anything yet, but don't anyone let me forget that I have a theory. He didn't even need to think about it. Whenever Xie Qingcheng needed to choose between himself and other people, he would always, always, and forever choose to place the lives of others before his own. And that was to say nothing of how, in that instant, his ears seemed to ring with the crack of the gunshot from the library basement, and the sound of He Yu's voice calling his name. Not the Chuaning cameo. Broken hunk of wood. Chuaning cameo. Okay. I'm about to have some feelings. Back then, He Yu had still been his little devil. His little devil had put his arms around him, shielding him from Lu Yuju's bullet. And now Xie Qingcheng is going to shield He Yu from a bullet. That's what's about to happen, apparently. The warm blood from his memory seemed to mix with the pouring rain of the present, flowing back into his heart. Xie Qingcheng threw one last look at Yi Awen, who was cackling maniacally in the mud. Then, he straightened up and released his grip on her. He Yu hadn't made a sound because he didn't want the other two to notice the danger he was in. But when he saw this, he finally yelled, "Xie Qingcheng, are you insane? What are you worrying about me for? I can't stand you, and you can't stand me either. Forget about me. Get her gun away from her first." But Xie Qingcheng knew there wasn't enough time. With a crack, the pine tree split even further. He Yu was hanging on to life by a thread, but he wasn't looking at the tree trunk. Instead, his reddened eyes were locked on Xie Qingcheng, stubbornly turning in his direction, as if welcoming the wind and the rain, the imminent danger, and even death itself. He Yu felt like something had violently bored into his heart. He could see that Xie Qingchung's face didn't contain even a trace of love for him. Yet he still rushed over to him, because of the goodness etched onto his bones and the sense of duty seared into his blood. I think there's love there too, somewhere. I think He Yu just does not recognize it yet. He Yu knew he wasn't special. No matter who it was in He Yu's position today, Xie Qingchung would have made the exact same choice. But it wasn't until that very moment that He Yu truly understood. In his heart, Xie Qingchung would always be uniquely precious. This strange, special dragon insisted on protecting the lives of others, even when he was caught in the undertow. Yet back then, after the case of the broadcasting tower, He Yu had really believed the video. He had actually believed that this person, the one who had unwaveringly encouraged him to walk out of the darkness on his own 2 feet, would mean those words that devalued human life. How had he believed it? Just like that. He Yu closed his eyes. For some reason, the rain streaming down his face was hot. Bang. The sound of a gunshot made He Yu's eyes abruptly fly open again. Blue, He Yu should have worn the blind contacts because he's clearly the blind one. It was Yi Awen. Yi Awen had fired again. Xie Qingchung was no idiot. He wanted to save He Yu's life without sacrificing his own, so he used every maneuver he knew to avoid the girl's gunfire. The first bullet flew into the air. The second bullet narrowly missed him. But then, the gunshots stopped. Yi Awen didn't fire a third time, because she realized that she didn't need to rush to shoot right now. Didn't Xie Qingchung want to save He Yu? Then he would have no choice but to stop for a moment, to reach for the boy and pull him up. At that point, she could get up close and shoot them both dead, so she saved the last bullet in her cartridge. Oh no, she's smarter than her mom. Standing in the downpour, she watched them with the chilling gaze of a ghost. As a ruthless schemer himself, He Yu deduced in a split second what sort of tricks Yi Awen had up her sleeve. His face went white. Even when Yi Awen had stomped on his hand with her high-heeled boot, his expression hadn't twisted so badly. Xie Qingchung, he bellowed with all the force he could muster. Don't fucking come over here. Do you want us to die together? He Yu practically never cursed. The only exception was in bed. But now the curses tumbled out, flames flying from his eyes, even as the rain streamed down his face. He couldn't let Xie Qingchung get any closer to him. But Xie Qingchung was still walking toward him. Xie Qingchung's steps weren't heavy, but each one seemed to set off an earthquake in He Yu's heart. When He Yu saw his face as he drew closer, he knew that Xie Qingchung already understood what would happen the moment he bent down to help him up. But he still continued so resolutely. Xie Qingchung, He Yu said, his voice quavering. Finally, Xie Qingchung stopped in front of He Yu. As rain pelted down, the man leaned forward and tightly grabbed onto He Yu's ice-cold hand, as decisively as He Yu had once taken a bullet for him. As determinedly as He Yu had once pushed him onto the ledge of that flooded studio. I'm pulling you up, Xie Qingchung said. At the very same moment, Yi Awen slowly raised her gun to point it at the man's back. Her expression turned deeply sinister, seeming to contain both joy and ridicule, not to mention bewilderment, pain, and even envy. All of these emotions rested on her hand, making it tremble slightly. Bang! The third gunshot finally echoed amid the mountains. Blood spurted everywhere. Jagged bolts of March lightning relentlessly tore apart the boundless night, as if bringing dawn's light to the endless darkness before its time. He Yu's eyes flew wide open as blood dripped onto his face, one drop after another. Xie Qingchung stifled a groan of pain, the color draining from his face in an instant. He had known all along what Yi Awen was planning to do, so he leaned slightly to the side as he helped He Yu up, fixing her in his peripheral vision. The moment she pulled the trigger, he swerved forcefully in the opposite direction. However, there was only so much he could do without letting go of He Yu. Oh god, Art. He could duck so that the bullet would miss his vital organs, but at this distance, it was impossible to dodge completely. Yi Awen's third shot hit Xie Qingcheng in his left arm, just below his shoulder. It was almost exactly where He Yu had been injured before. Destiny seemed to have looped back onto itself, braiding their fates together, ordaining that their debts be repaid. He Yu's mind was utterly blank, and he couldn't seem to hear anything either. He just stared at him dumbly, stared at his blood, his face, all that he had done. Xie Qingcheng. Xie Qingcheng. His Dr. Xie. He still hadn't left. He still wanted to save him. He Yu's heart trembled as his pupils contracted to pinpricks. He saw the grievously wounded man in front of him furrow his brow, overcoming the pain by sheer force of will. He saw this man, left arm soaked in blood, still refusing to give up. Then, enduring the agony and gritting his teeth, he used his last reserves of strength to haul He Yu over the edge. The exertion tore Xie Qingcheng's gunshot wound and exacerbated the internal injuries he'd sustained from crashing into the rocks. He couldn't stop himself from coughing heavily, blood seeping from the corner of his mouth. He had reached his limit. As soon as he finished pulling He Yu up, his body crumpled and lurched forward. He Yu caught him in the pouring rain. Xie Qingcheng, he murmured. Xie Qingcheng. His palms were covered in blood, the blood from the scrapes and the fall, and the blood that poured out of Xie Qingcheng's arm. He Yu didn't fear blood. On the contrary, he thirsted for it. But in that moment, he panicked. It was as if the blood had seeped into his reddened eyes and soaked into his strangled throat. I guess we'll go ahead and take a look at the art now. Yeah. That's what we're looking at right here. He Yu, berserk? No. No way. I suspect that he might head in that direction. It was as if the blood had seeped into his reddened eyes and soaked into his strangled throat. Xie Qingcheng! In the torrential downpour, before he lost consciousness, Xie Qingcheng said one last thing to him. He Yu, I've paid you back for that bullet. He Yu's heart swelled with grief. He wished more than anything that he could have tumbled off this cliff to his death. He held him so tightly in his arms, wanting to say something, yet unable to speak. After all, he'd seen the look in Xie Qingcheng's eyes as they were illuminated by a momentary flash of lightning. He looked like he'd been relieved of a burden, like he could finally write off all of his debts, having repaid them in full. Finally, faced with that expression, the youth's heart was torn into a million pieces and then completely hollowed out. As the thunder boomed and the mountains flashed with brilliance, He Yu slowly looked up, still embracing Xie Qingcheng's limp, bleeding form. With feverishly scarlet eyes and a dagger-like gaze, he stared straight at Yi Awen. Well, so my theory turned out to be correct. It wasn't really that much of a theory, but I was basically just thinking, wait a minute, no, the chapter title is deceptive. When he says, Xie Qingcheng, why did you have to treat me like that? He means, like, why did you have to put me above yourself? Like, why did you have to save me and put yourself in danger? Yep. Well, we are on, hold on, let me see. long this chapter is. Okay, judging by what we have left, I'm just gonna go ahead and take a break now. And after about a 10-minute break, we will be on chapter 119, which is called I Wanted to Kill Her. I think that whole you going berserk thing is happening. So I will be right back. Hello, everyone. I have returned. And it is time to see how they get out of this doozy of a situation. We are on page 433 for chapter 119, which is called I Wanted to Kill Her. This is a crazy first sentence. If an evil demon lost the shackles granted to him by a god, what would he do? He Yu's shackles were Xie Qingcheng. He was the demon dragon's kin who could tie him down and restrain his fits of madness. But Xie Qingcheng had fallen. Grievously wounded and covered in blood, he had fallen into He Yu's arms, just like that. His blood turned into the flickering firelight that led the demon dragon astray. The shackles that had held He Yu suddenly broke open, shattering into dust. He Yu's pupils were already blood red. He couldn't remember exactly how he put Xie Qingcheng down. He only remembered that Xie Qingcheng was very heavy, nestled in his arms. Xie Qingcheng's solid warmth radiated into He Yu's wounded chest. But by the time he had laid him down against the rocks, that bit of anesthetic warmth was already gone. It was gone. Gone. He stalked coldly toward Yi Awen. Before, Yi Awen had resembled a vengeful spirit, but next to He Yu now, she looked more like a sheep who had grown up listening to heavenly flute song. Without a doubt, He Yu wanted her dead. What are you doing? Yawen sputtered. You. I do wonder why she would be, surprised. Like, she was trying to kill them, so. As if a dragon's wings, fangs, and spiked tail suddenly sprouted from his body, he threw himself at her without another word. Before she managed to raise her gun again, he had her pinned against the rocks with a terrifying ferocity. Tendons bulging from the hand he'd grabbed her with, he pelted her with a flurry of furious punches and kicks. His pupils contracted to pinpricks of black ink, reflecting Yi Awen's battered visage as he tormented her into unbearable agony. She shrieked and swore, frantically trying to break free. But it was like he couldn't hear a thing. He'd lost his mind. Xie Qingcheng's blood had refined him, body and soul, into a malevolent spirit. At that moment, all that the demon dragon could hear was the last sentence his kin had spoken to him. Seemingly relieved, the azure dragon had said to him, He Yu, I've paid you back for that bullet. But really, no matter what Xie Qingcheng might have said, in the depths of his mind, he still remembered what He Yu had done for him. That was why Xie Qingcheng hadn't left the club back then. It was why, after all the absurdities that followed, he'd never actually murdered He Yu. When He Yu pestered him over and over amid their endless trysts, he chose to stop fighting and sacrifice his own body, numbly dealing with He Yu, instead of resorting to extreme measures to end their pathological relationship. Xie Qingcheng detested all aspects of He Yu's behavior, but perhaps, in his subconscious mind, he'd always felt that he owed him something. Xie Qingcheng was already extremely unwilling to owe anyone anything at all, but because this matter was tied to his mortality, it pressed down on Xie Qingcheng's soul with a stifling weight. Maybe he'd been looking for a chance to pay him back for the life he owed him all along. Only then would Xie Qingcheng be able to peacefully and completely break things off with him. Was that why? Surely, that was why. He Yu's eyes didn't fall on Yi Awen anymore. He couldn't see her. This criminal could cry or curse or scream at the top of her lungs, but no matter what she did, he couldn't hear her. Blood flew into the air as the rain sheeted down. In the middle of their savage fight, he seized her gun and snatched away the knife she used to lunge at him. With the flip of the blade, the deadly weapon fell into his hands. Gripping the handle, He unblinkingly drove the blade into her palm. The villain let out a shriek that seemed to emanate from hell itself. Blood had splashed onto Hoyu's face. Although his blood-stained features were devoid of expression, he looked more like a vengeful spirit than she did. "This cut," he said menacingly, "is for when you stepped on my hand." Click. Gripping Yi Wen with one hand, he used the other to open the gun's magazine and dump out all of the bullets. This murderer must have had a guilty conscience to carry something like this on her. Now, the knife and the gun were both his. He needed to pick one to end the life of this woman who'd hurt Xie Qingcheng. He would kill her. Kill her. He didn't pick the gun. Well, obviously he's not picking the gun if he tossed the bullets out. After taking it apart, he tossed it into the mud. That object had hurt Xie Qingcheng. He didn't want to touch it again. Blue, you said, can Xie Qingcheng please wake up now? I'm kind of wondering if the reason the chapter is called I Wanted to Kill Her, if that isn't because Xie Qingcheng, like, wakes up and is like, no, we need information from her, and then he doesn't kill her, or something like that. That, or he, like, considers Xie Qingcheng's viewpoint that he might feel that way, and he, like, spares her. More importantly, it would be too easy to kill her kindly with a gun. He wanted to torture her to death. He noticed with disinterest that her struggling had gone from fierce to feeble, from hopeful to despairing. She was like a moth fluttering its wings in his hands. The moth had wanted to fly into his flame and put out his light, so he caught it. After giving it a taste of agonizing pain, he was going to end its life, judgment for its crimes. It didn't matter if the moth's fluids splashed everywhere, covering his hands in filth. We're never getting away from the filth. Wait, Henry. Xie Qingcheng, stop. We need her for information. What Yu hears. Babe, baby, look at me. This isn't you. He pressed that blood-splattered knife against Yi Wen's neck. This cut, he said softly, is me sending you down to hell. His eyes were even redder and sharper than the bloody blade. It's over, he growled. Cold light flashed. The blade pressed in. But then, at that moment, a hoarse, whisper-soft sound broke through his barriers, soaring straight to his eardrums. Yu. Yu stilled. For a moment, there was a lull in the monsoon of chaos ripping through his head. Yu. The demon dragon's shackles began to materialize again. Those shackles, those shattered fragments, transformed into brilliant chains, coalescing in midair to hold back the youth who was about to jump into hell. The sound of his name woke Yu's senses. He whipped around. At some point, Xie Qingcheng had regained consciousness. I see, that is how it happened. He was leaning against the wall of rock, covered in blood and coughing softly as he pressed a hand to his wounded left arm. Yu, Xie Qingcheng panted hoarsely. Don't kill her. She can't fight back anymore. You'll be going too far if you keep on fighting. Don't be a murderer. Don't be like her. Yu didn't reply. Come here, listen to me. Leave it to the law to punish people for their crimes. Xie Qingcheng knitted his brows and coughed violently before lifting his head, his chest heaving with each labored breath. You're already covered in blood. Yu still didn't respond. Yu, put down the knife. Come over here. Call the police. Let them take her away. Don't. As Xie Qingcheng's wound twinged with pain again, he furrowed his brow. Don't take any more into your own hands. Yi Wen was lying in a pool of blood, but when she heard those words, her eyes were more terrified than when she was facing her own death. Don't call the police. I'd rather you kill me right now. Don't call the police." She was utterly frantic. It was clear that her abilities ultimately fell far short of her mother's. Liu Yuju had managed to force them into desperate straits, but Yi Awen failed. Like the crude gun she'd stolen, she could go off at any second, but in the end, she was just a petty village criminal. I like how we assumed that she's the one who made the gun. I didn't even think about the fact that she could have stolen it. Although she hadn't said anything out loud, Xie Qingcheng was certain that Yi Awen wasn't part of that organization. She had nothing to do with the RN13 criminal cases they were looking into. Now that sounds logical to me, but how do we know that? "He Yu, quick," Xie Qingcheng rasped. "Come over here." He Yu didn't move. Xie Qingcheng wanted to continue, but even though he was awake now, he'd still banged his ribcage and the back of his head in the fall. Trying to speak at length made him cough so violently that the world flashed dark before his eyes and he spat out mouthfuls of blood. "Xie Qingcheng," He Yu muttered, slowly coming back to his senses. Xie Qingcheng's orders couldn't make He Yu obey, but his weakness could. The wicked dragon finally withdrew its bloody fangs from the human's neck. He Yu was covered in blood, but he still staggered to his feet and stumbled toward Xie Qingcheng, step after step. The knife slipped out of his hand, clattering to the ground. "Xie Qingcheng!" The enormous dragon folded his wings and landed next to Xie Qingcheng. As if waking from a dream, he anxiously helped him sit up and pulled him into a hug. "Are you okay? Are you okay?" Xie Qingcheng indicated that he was fine with a nod and croaked, "Go call the police." "Don't call the police. You can't call the police," the woman cried. "Kill me. Just kill me yourselves. Don't call the police." Xie Qingcheng said, "Yi Awen, you killed someone." She didn't reply. His eyes were severe over his blood-stained cheeks as he continued. "That person in the wall behind the bookshelf in the attic. That's her father, isn't it?" The light in Yi Awen's eyes warped, paired with the blood all over her face. Her appearance had grown even more terrifying. "He was asking for it," she muttered, then began to shout. "You wouldn't understand. He was asking for it." A clap of thunder boomed. As it reverberated through the wide-open valley, it sounded like a decrepit old train rumbling to life. Everybody, we're getting a flashback. Yep, we're getting a flashback. You already referenced Chicago. Oh god, I need to tell y'all something. When Chicago came out, when it was in theaters, I do not remember what year this was, but I was still young. I was still pretty young. My parents, heedless of the rating of the movie, took me with them to see Chicago in theaters. Was it 2003? Good God. Okay. Well, yeah. Where were we? The sound of that thunder sent her back to 5 years ago. On the platform of Qingli County's railway station. The bells screeched, and the train's engine roared. Carrying 2 tattered red, white, and blue plastic tote bags, Yi Awen ran toward the late-night train from her village without a backward glance. Her eyes held all of her unhappiness and disdain for the past, but also her overflowing excitement and anticipation for the future. Yi Awen, who dropped out of high school, was following in her stepmother's footsteps. She was running away from this village, a recycling station for humanity's trash. She was going to the city, to a prospering world of wonders. Yi Awen was a very diligent woman. Young, hardworking, and attractive, she wasn't worried about finding work in the city, in any city, nor was she worried about finding a man. She got a job as a salesgirl in a mall selling sheets and duvets. With a salary of 2,000 yuan per month plus commission, She could often take home a bit more than 3,000 without trying too hard. Many city folk would find the salary paltry, but to a working girl like Yi Ah-wen, who just escaped her village, it was enough. The mall provided her housing and meals, so Yi Ah-wen could put that 3,000 toward fulfilling her own dreams. Damn, the job gave you housing? That's a really good deal, actually. There was an American-style cafe in the city center, the likes of which Yi Ah-wen had only seen on TV before. The 30-something yuan cup of coffee was a little bitter, but as she sipped it from within the crowd of young people typing on their laptops, she could imagine herself as the female lead of an urban drama. 30 yuan wasn't an overly extravagant price tag for a destitute girl to buy her dream. On the top floor of a skyscraper, there was a conveyor belt sushi restaurant that was a little more than 200 yuan per meal. People who made more money than Yi Ah-wen would look down on that kind of place. They preferred to eat at quiet, elegant vegetarian restaurants tucked away in a longtong, places where they could enjoy a pure, natural prefix meal of green seasonal vegetables for over 1,000 yuan. But to young people like Yi Ah-wen, who just struck out on their own, this kind of sushi restaurant gave them a chance to look down from the top of the building at the bright lights of the busy city, bewitching them into putting down roots and sacrificing their youthful bodies to this vaunted land, encouraging them to continue climbing up and walking forward. There were also the brightly lit budget hotels. For less than 300 a night, you could have a room that held love within its walls. Of course, Yi Ah-wen envied the lovely, smiling women flitting in and out of luxury hotels in their Jimmy Choos, on the arms of successful men, draped in heavy furs, with delicate soldiers peeking out above slender waists. When she walked past the entrances of those hotels, she thought even the air wafting out of them was unfathomably fragrant. Although she lived in budget hotels and hostels, she felt content. It wasn't that she didn't long for a life of luxury, but when she saw those incomparably beautiful women with chubby, homely men, she felt that she was better off. After all, her man was both accomplished and handsome. Soon after Yi Ah-wen arrived in the city, she found herself a boyfriend. A handsome university student. The first time she went to a hair salon, she was too embarrassed to say she couldn't shell out a few thousand yuan for the membership card the hairdresser tirelessly tried to upsell her. The customer in the next chair came to her rescue. He told her sincerely, "You don't need to get a perm. Your straight hair already looks very nice." That day, they exchanged WeChat contacts and eventually got together. He was a native of the city, an accounting student in university. His mother was in middle management at a state-owned company, and his father was a police officer. Many girls wouldn't find his background particularly impressive, and they certainly wouldn't feel any sort of insecurity or fear. But Yi Ah-wen was different. After their first kiss, as she gazed at his bright, handsome face while wearing his wool coat, an unbearable shame welled up. She thought of her parents, her birthplace, of everything she'd lived through, and burst into humiliated tears. Confused and startled, he asked her what was wrong. Was his kissing technique really that bad? She wiped away her tears and pulled herself together as well as she could. "That's not it," she said. "That's not it. This is my first relationship. I'm so happy." In the end, she still hid her background from him. She didn't dare tell him that she had run away from the poorest, most gambling-addicted village in Qingli County, with a compulsive gambler for a father, and a little sister from another mother. One of her mothers fled to the ends of the earth with no intention of returning. The other was a criminal who'd been jailed for accepting bribes. Lu Yuju's daughter, the criminal's daughter. Yi Ah-wen, your real mother is behind bars. Your stepmother is a slutty mistress. Even the other villagers looked down on her and insulted her. How could she have the courage to explain her life story to her boyfriend? Thus, she deceived him. In front of him, she molded herself into a part-time university student at the school next to X University. To make the lie more believable, she even made a trip to the campus and asked a graduate for a set of course materials. When they went on dates, she'd often put a few books in her bag to make it look like she'd just gotten out of class. What's he gonna say when it's like a couple years down the line and you're not graduating and you don't have, a degree? Like, yeah, oh god, this is not... He never suspected anything. Student relationships were often very simple and clean, and so he never investigated her past. Not simple and clean again, oh my god. But students wouldn't remain students forever. Her boyfriend graduated. On the day he got his diploma, he took her to that top-floor conveyor belt sushi restaurant in a neighborhood that wasn't inexpensive for a student, and solemnly asked her, "Are you willing to come home with me and meet my family?" She was startled and delighted, and also alarmed. At that moment, she felt like a swollen balloon that was about to float into the sky. But she also worried that she might burst or explode. With a pop, everyone would find out that she was hollow, with nothing inside. Then it would all be over. If she had come clean to her boyfriend at that point, the situation might have not devolved past the point of no return. But Yi Ah-wen was too self-effacing and timid. She loved him. She loved him so much that she was too afraid of losing him and didn't dare say a thing. In the end, she used 4 months of savings to buy a presentable-looking outfit at the mall. After all, she told her boyfriend that she came from a literary family, and her parents were both newspaper reporters. Although they wouldn't be particularly rich, they would at least be well off. She planned to keep spinning her lies. She endeavored to dress herself up in front of his parents, like a dishonest shopkeeper wrapping a worm-eaten apple in colorful paper, trying to hide it in the fruit basket to dupe inattentive customers. On the day she met his parents, she wore a pure white midi dress with a casual blazer and a pair of Spanish lambskin shoes, with a spirited ponytail and light, elegant makeup. She even bought a set of imported toiletries, specifically because she wanted to leave a good impression on her boyfriend's mother. His parents brought them to a nearby Western-style restaurant. This restaurant was a truly respectable establishment. Before this, the fanciest place she'd ever been was a middling chain steakhouse. As she faced the complicated etiquette of the dinner table in a state of flustered bewilderment, she looked up to see her boyfriend's mother staring at her pensively. Yi Ah-wen's heart skipped a beat, as a vague sense of foreboding set in. She knew that this worldly woman had spotted the holes in the apple. After that meal, her boyfriend didn't contact her for some time. It was almost like she already knew how this was going to go. Although her heart was filled with pain, she resisted reaching out to him, as if they'd come to a mutual understanding. Until one day, when she came down with a fever, lying on the rickety steel cot in the room she shared with her roommates. She started crying as she thought about him. In the end, she couldn't resist sending him a message. "Dear, will you listen if I explain?" she wrote. Her boyfriend didn't reply. She pressed her phone to her heart, but before she passed out from irresistible drowsiness, she didn't receive a single message from him. Unsurprisingly, the next morning, there were still no new messages. Sometimes breakups were calm like this, without any ugly drama, as if saving face for both parties. But she still cried, wailing loudly as she lay on her dorm room bed. She felt as though the mask she wore so diligently had been shattered in that instant, revealing the face that still belonged to the girl from that destitute village. The daughter of an inveterate gambler and a criminal. Later on, she ran into him on the street. Even though hardly any time had passed, he was already with a new girl. That girl wore a scarf that probably cost more than a year of Yi Ah-wen's savings, revealing a mouth full of neat, snowy white teeth when she smiled. The easy elegance and grace that Yi Wen could never manage to feign were written all over her face. They didn't see her, but she overheard a bit of their conversation when she walked by as they faced the display window with their backs to her. She heard him say, "I know I lost my temper with the bank teller just now, but don't think I'm prejudiced against people from the countryside. I got deceived before. I told you what happened with my ex-girlfriend. My dad got someone from the station to investigate her. Turns out she was lying to me about everything. She was a worker from some village. Her dad racked up over 200,000 in debt, and her mother was a labor camp prisoner. Just thinking about her still disgusts me. I don't know how someone could be so malicious." Damn, okay. That's, like, you were lied to. But that's a reaction. That day, she fell apart completely. Was she really malicious? She knew that what she'd done was undoubtedly wrong, but she never sought to obtain anything from him other than love. When they were together, she'd actually paid more than he did, both because she was older than him and already making money on her own, and because she truly and sincerely loved him. Because she loved him so deeply, so apprehensively and insecurely, she got confused. Once she told a single lie, she had no choice but to tell bigger and bigger lies to pad out the story. Making that kind of choice was an instinct that had been drilled into her. Every time she candidly told others about her real circumstances, they either gave her empty words of comfort or unabashedly looked down on her. She'd gotten enough of those stares growing up, to the point that she utterly loathed her mother and father. Why couldn't others judge her solely on who she was? Why did they always need to include her family, her parents, the deeds in her drawers, the balance in her accounts? Yi Wen couldn't understand. All those years, her family had never shown her a single bit of normal guidance or concern. She saw how her father was wretched, beastly, and idle. She couldn't remember her birth mother, but others always told her that she was corrupt, ruthless, and cruel. She was their child, so her birth must have been an act of retribution. She didn't deserve a bright future. It's kind of sad how He was observing that she's kind of similar to her mother, and she, like, doesn't even know that and doesn't know her. Oh, that was the end of the chapter. Okay. Oh god, okay. Well, we are now on page 447 for chapter 120, which, other than the mini theater, is the last chapter of this book. We're here already. Goodness. Yeah, it's a bit of a shorter stream today, but that kind of works out perfectly, so we have time to talk a little bit about the case file that we've experienced so far before we move on to another thing. So, did I say the title already? We're on page 447 for chapter 120, which is called "I Spared Her Life, but Not Her Heart." Oh god, yeah. Is it going to end where we're, like, still in the flashback? Because that's not exactly a cliffhanger, but it is, like, what happened? Like, after that, Yi Wen had a few more brief relationships, but she didn't want to pretend anymore. An honorable person would be forthright, and she wanted to try being honorable. But the results were dismal. No one would want to buy an apple full of wormholes, no matter how sincerely or cheaply it was sold. Every time one of those men learned about her family, he came up with all sorts of far-fetched excuses to leave her. Yi Wen was initially sad and indignant, but by the end, she only felt numb and jaded. One night, sitting at a bar at 4 a.m, she watched drunken woman after drunken woman being picked up by men who no doubt intended to take advantage of them. Suddenly, she realized that this city was no different from her village. Both places were equally filthy, operating under the same set of unspoken rules. If you had money and power, no one would dare bully or cheat you. If you were poor and powerless, you'd spend your whole life letting other people call the shots and order you around. Around that time, she received a letter from her younger sister. This sister from another mother was the only person in the world who could really understand her. She was even smaller and weaker than Yi Ah-wen, so she endured even greater hardships. Her sister wrote that she missed her and that she wished she would come home. She said their father wanted to marry her off to a disabled widower from the neighboring village. When she finished reading, Yi Ah-wen was furious. That cripple was already 50, and how old was her sister? Of course she knew exactly what the man they called their father was plotting. The cripple was sick, ugly, and old, but he ran a little gambling house their father frequented. Their father had lost all his money there, and now he wanted to use his daughter as a bargaining chip on the betting table. Yi Ah-wen couldn't allow that to happen. She packed up her belongings and left her disappointment and trauma behind in the city. Bringing her frozen heart and the knowledge and experience she had accumulated, she returned to Qingli County. She went to her father, Yi Qiang, and asked him without preamble if he wanted money. Then, yet another poppy flower nourished by darkness bloomed in the barren dirt of the Yi family village. Ah-wen Hair Salon opened. Once a victim, Yi Ah-wen now became a perpetrator. Yep. She blamed her misfortunes on her impoverished family background and being born to an idle father and criminal mother. She couldn't change her past, but she figured that if she sold her soul, she could change her present. Everything should have gone according to plan, if Yi Qiang's ego and greed hadn't continued to swell, if his younger daughter hadn't grown more beautiful day by day. Yi Qiang met a gang boss in one of the city's casinos. Because of the gangster's powerful connections, people naturally fawned over him. He'd experienced enough of the city's carnal delights, and in the interest of trying something new, he would sometimes check out what the countryside had to offer. Thus, Yi Qiang brought the gangster to his hair salon in the village. Yi Ah-wen happened to be away that day, so only Lulu was watching the place. The gangster looked around, but found no one to his liking. He was about to throw a fit when he caught sight of Yi Lulu's stunning beauty. That night, as her father stood by and said nothing for fear of causing offense, that man forced himself on Yi Lulu. She didn't dare tell Yi Ah-wen what had happened, but eventually, she could no longer hide the fact that she'd gotten pregnant. Shaking with fury, wait. When? No, never mind. I had a thought, but I'm gonna put that on the back burner. Also, God, this is horrible. Shaking with fury, Yi Ah-wen brought the girl, still so young, to the hospital in town. Before being wheeled into the operating room, her sister pulled on Yi Ah-wen's sleeve and asked dazedly, "Jia, if we had a mom, would our lives be a little bit easier?" In that moment, Yi Ah-wen's heart clenched so tightly that even her anger couldn't make its way through. After she got home, she retrieved the surveillance footage from that day she hadn't been around and watched the entire thing. Her hands and feet were clammy. Originally, she'd wanted to find an excuse to pardon the man she called her father. But then she saw with her own eyes how that man fawned over the gangster so deferentially, then stood indifferently outside the room as if pretending he couldn't hear the young woman's cries, and finally accepted the gangster's thick bundle of bills, even putting his palms together and smiling as he bowed in thanks. Yeah, no, that man deserved to die. Yeah. She watched it all woodenly. Even after the display went dark at the end of the recording, she still didn't move a muscle. A long while later, she saw her own reflection on the dark screen. She saw a face that belonged to a demon. "I killed him," Yi Ah-wen finally told Hoyu and Xie Qingcheng. "If I didn't cut away our family's rotten roots, it would be impossible for me and my sister to start anew. I didn't have a choice. I didn't have a choice at all. What do you guys know? You don't have to worry about putting food on the table and clothes on your backs. You think you're so clever, coming here to uncover the truth. I've seen plenty of people like you. You'll go back and write up a bunch of eye-catching articles about the so-called truth, turning other people's flesh and blood into the rotten fertilizer that nourishes your livelihood. What had started out as an irresponsible report from a new journalist who thought they were serving justice had ultimately transformed into a tangled, complicated, demonic web. Yi Awen assumed that Xie Qingcheng and He Yu must be trying to dig up some dirt on the village for a news report, just like the journalist from back then. As she spoke, she threw her head back and began to laugh. You people, you don't know anything. You don't understand anything. To you, all of our suffering is just fodder for your tea-time conversations. Xie Jingcheng didn't bother explaining anything to her. They'd only crossed paths with Yi Awen accidentally while investigating the RN13 case. 20 years after Lu Yuju's family was shattered, they were witnessing the conclusion of her husband and daughter's story. At that moment, a police siren howled in the distance. Yi Awen bit her lip, all color draining from her face. You guys called the police? Xie Qingcheng and He Yu hadn't gotten a chance to call the police. They didn't know who was responsible either. They watched the police car zip along the steep roads. Yi Awen subconsciously took a step back. As if somehow decreed by fate, she and her mother both loathed the police. In her mother's case, it was because she had been framed, whereas for Yi Awen, it was because of the way her ardent love had been extinguished. Okay, her ex-boyfriend's father had been a policeman who exposed her family background and secrets. She felt like she'd been stripped naked and examined under surgical lights. That feeling of shame still persisted to that day. Jie, are you okay? The police car sped to a nearby mountain path, and Yi Lulu rushed out of the car. Ironically, Yi Awen's sister had been the one to call the police. The girl didn't know that Yi Awen had killed her father, or that she'd sealed his body in the wall to keep people from finding it. Once again, what were you going to do with the body smelling? But anyway. In her eyes, her sister was still a good person, kind yet helpless. If she saw Yi Awen get into an argument with someone, she'd always assume it was the other person's fault, that they were bullying her and her sister. Yi Awen dazedly took in the scene. She could have never anticipated that it would end like this. Xie Qingcheng didn't want to continue speaking to her, nor did he know what he was supposed to say to this wretched, loathsome, yet pitiable woman. But He Yu was different. He Yu was no saint. He hadn't committed murder because Xie Qingcheng hadn't let him, but his chest was still filled with hatred and spite. After the police came over, he suddenly called out to Yi Awen. Hold on. I haven't finished talking to you yet. Yi Awen didn't reply. He Yu walked slowly toward her like a stalking predator, revealing his deadly fangs. Looking down at this woman who had injured his kin, he spoke in clipped tones, his voice laced with malice. Miss Yi, do you think you're innocent and helpless? Do you think your actions were forced by circumstances outside your control? To everyone else, He Yu's words sounded righteous and moving. But when Yi Awen's gaze met his, she saw only an unmasked devil in his eyes. Clutching at her bleeding hand, Yi Awen turned away in panic. He was getting his revenge. Using his own methods, this beast in human clothing would get his revenge. What difference is there now between you and those people who once humiliated you? He Yu asked coldly. You didn't want your sister to endure those indignities. But what did you do in the name of rewriting your destiny and obtaining money and power? When you rounded up those girls to sell their bodies in your parlor, did you ever consider their feelings? In front of her younger sister, in front of the only person she still cared about, he tore off her disguise. Terrified, Yi Awen shook her head. He Yu could manipulate her emotions as precisely as a butcher handling a fish. Stop talking, she beseeched He Yu as she watched the bewilderment on Yi Lulu's face turn into shock. But He Yu didn't listen. She had forced him to hear Xie Qingcheng say those heart-wrenching words, "I paid you back." So he was going to make her experience the same kind of anguish. He knew that this would be even crueler than killing her outright. Because her family circumstances were unfortunate, he continued ruthlessly. Because you couldn't stand people calling you the daughter of a criminal and an inveterate gambler, you make those other girls do that kind of work. They work willingly. Willingly. I don't force them. But have you ever thought about whether their daughters and fathers are willing? If they have children in the future, will people in this village point at those kids just like they pointed at you? Will their boyfriend's parents look down on them? Have you thought about that, Yi Wen? You've only ever thought about yourself. You never bothered to look into your mother's whereabouts these past 2 years, have you? She didn't reply. If only you had the guts to stop avoiding her and recognize her as your mother. If only you took a closer look at the articles about her. You would have known that your mother, Lu Yuju, was pardoned many years ago. The original trial was based on false evidence, and the prosecutor personally paid her a visit in Huzhou to apologize and exonerate her. I hadn't thought of that, of course. She doesn't know that because she basically said, well, I have nothing to do with her, and stopped looking into things about her mother. Of course, she has no idea. Upon hearing this, Yi Wen shuddered and looked up, staring at him in disbelief as if she'd seen a ghost. You had no idea. I'm not surprised at all, Yu said deliberately. Because you're too selfish. You only ever wondered why she was a corrupt official. Because in your eyes, she was an official before she was your mother. You never tried to understand her. You never tried to find out about the time she came home only for you and your father to break her heart. Because you didn't recognize her at all. And your father had already found a new woman. Only then did she leave you forever. It's not difficult to look into these things, so why didn't you know about them? It's because you didn't want to look into them in the first place. The minute you found out she was a corrupt official and a criminal, you were ashamed of her. You wished she'd never walked this earth. So you never bothered to try to understand even the tiniest bit of your mother's past. Yi Wen remained silent. If you'd looked into it, you would have learned that back when your mother was in charge, she was the one who planned out the only passable road in your entire damn village. You would have learned that when she was the county secretary, she was the one who constructed the Hope Elementary School in the county seat for all the children in this area who wanted to study. If you'd looked into it, you would have known about the humiliation, pain, torment, and false charges that your mother endured. You would have known that she finally had her name cleared. If you looked into it. Yu paused briefly. Revenge was the original motivation behind his words. He'd wanted to unmask Yi Wen in front of everyone, including her dear little sister. He'd wanted her to experience that look of disappointment in the eyes of someone she loved. But as he spoke, the figure of that woman from the broadcasting tower seemed to float up in his eyes, throwing her head back in wild laughter and then sobbing into her hands. In truth, if it hadn't been for their opposing positions, Yu might have sympathized with Lu Yuju back then. Up until the day of the broadcasting tower case, when Lu Yuju resolved to die for the organization, her heart still ached for the daughter she would never see again. When Xie Qingcheng had asked her whether she could still see those eyes watching her from the sky, even though Lu Yuju had never met Zhou Muying, his words still roused a sort of universal maternal feeling, making her hesitate. Yu didn't necessarily hate Lu Yuju. When Yu reached this point, his words contained a sincere note of inquiry. If you looked into it, Yi Wen, if only you'd seen her as your mother, if you'd trusted her and asked for the truth about her past, she would have been your pride instead of your shame, the mother you'd go to any lengths to save. Then everything would be different now. Both of you could have had time to set things right. But did you know that because of your family's neglect, your mother's burdens weren't limited to her own wrongs? Do you know what she had to do in the end? In order to survive, she ended up working at a salon very much like yours. Perhaps that salon's boss also had troubles outside their control, just like you. But while you exploited those girls for your own gain, your mother toiled just as willingly as the girls who worked for you. You could have changed everything. If only you'd made the slightest effort to understand her. If only you weren't ashamed to have a criminal for a mother. You could have gone to her side as soon as you learned about those injustices. Perhaps you could have even brought your sister with you. Your mother wouldn't have joined a terrorist organization. You wouldn't have fallen this far, and your sister wouldn't have anything to worry about. Even your father. You stopped for a moment before finally speaking the truth out loud, as Yi Lulu and the police all gaped in horror. Your father wouldn't have been murdered. You wouldn't have killed him and cruelly sealed him in the wall of your salon's attic. To be fair, he deserved that, but yeah. Yi Awen had been trying to pull herself to her feet, but at that moment, she crumpled to the ground again. You once had a key that could have changed the lives of everyone in your family. If only you had been willing to make a genuine and open-minded effort to understand your own mother, but you tossed it away without even looking at it. Thunder boomed from the heavens, a deep, muffled rumble. Its sound was like the final drum roll at the close of an epic concerto. Tonight, the ending of the piece that had begun at the broadcasting tower was finally performed. Silence descended, seemingly endless. At last, the police stepped forward and slapped handcuffs onto Yi Awen's wrists. As she walked past her sister with her head lowered, Yi Lulu watched her at a loss, her eyes swimming with tears of panic. Jia, I didn't mean to. I didn't know. Why did you? She didn't know what she was supposed to say. Her words tumbled out senselessly. Blue, you said if this was a police investigation novel, He would be the good cop to Xia Qingcheng's bad cop, up until he decided to drop the good cop act. Yeah, I can see that. Yi Awen kept her head lowered, not daring to look at her. In the end, she too became her family's shame. She was terrified of seeing that look of intense disappointment in Yi Lulu's eyes as she brushed past. It wasn't until she was helped into the car that Yi Lulu suddenly snapped out of her trance. She threw off the police officer who had been supporting her and staggered toward her sister. Jia! Jia! What are you doing? The officer cried. Stop her! But the captain shook his head, stopping his subordinates in their tracks. Yi Lulu threw herself at Yi Awen's back, sobbing and hugging her tightly. Jia, it's okay. It's okay. Don't be scared. I don't blame you. I don't blame you. I know you love me. I know you wanted the best for me. You've always been my only family in the world, and that's never going to change. Ajia, no matter what you've done, you'll always be my Ajia. Yi Awen's heart throbbed violently. She suddenly turned her head back to look at that young girl. Her eyes filled with tears. In that moment, she suddenly understood how her long-lost mother must have felt when she left the Yi family village all those years ago. Back then, had Lu Yuju wished for someone to give her those words of love and support? It didn't matter if she was the celebrated Secretary Lu or the unjustly imprisoned criminal. The whole time, she was her daughter's mother and her husband's wife. Perhaps this was how she felt when she came home. Back then, she had wanted so little. Perhaps she just wanted her husband to call her his wife. Perhaps she just wanted her daughter to call her mama. But neither of them gave her that comfort, so she left and never returned in all the long years that followed. Yi Awen's throat choked with sobs. She thought she could say something to her sister, but in the end, she said nothing at all. She hurriedly turned around, following the police officers as if fleeing. She left. Yu watched as her silhouette disappeared behind the closed door of the police car. Then he turned back to say something to Xia Qingcheng. but he found that he was leaning back against the rocks, pressing his hand to his profusely bleeding arm. The breath of relief He had barely let out now hitched in his throat again. He cried, "Xie Chung." No reply. "Xie Chung, are you okay? You..." Xie Chung didn't answer. Enduring the violent fall and the gunshot wound had sapped his strength. His face bloodlessly pale, he slowly slid down the rock with his head bowed and his eyes closed. I'm so sorry to tell you. That's the end of the chapter. It is not a terrible cliffhanger. Like, it's just, he just has to go to the hospital, okay? No, you're totally right, Blue. But I kind of was like, oh, it's going in the direction that maybe we're not going to end on, like, anything extra bad happening in this moment. And then it was like, no, we gotta do something, you know. It could be so much worse. But I'm just like, really? Okay. Oh my goodness. Okay. Meat Bun's Mini Theater on page 459 is Magical Pet Shop 2. So remember the Magical Pet Shop from last time? We are back here again. After the puppy dragon from the Magical Pet Shop went home with Xiege, he discovered that Xiege also lived with a little girl. This was Xiege's younger sister, Xiexue. Wah, what a strange little creature. Xiexue poked the puppy dragon's tail. Are you a puppy or a dragon? Yu curled up his tail. I'm a dragon. Xiexue immediately searched on the internet. How are you supposed to raise a dragon? What does a fledgling dragon eat? There were all sorts of answers online. You should feed it cookies. Powdered goat's milk is the best option. Little dragons under the age of 5 shouldn't eat anything too salty. Anything all natural should be fine. Dragons are very tough. Xiexue noted down every single point. When Xiege went to work, Xiexue carried a bunch of food over to Yu's little den. Powdered milk? The little dragon didn't respond. Powdered goat's milk? The little dragon was silent. Puppy milk replacement? Yu reached out a little paw and knocked the milk replacement to the ground. Xiexue was very dejected. The puppy dragon wouldn't eat anything. Would it starve to death? The internet didn't say anything about this. Could she have missed something? She carefully looked at the results again. The nth reply. Dragons are magical creatures, lustful by nature. Okay. Young dragons don't need to be given food unless they are curious about certain flavors. But... okay. Alright, Meat Bun. Okay, Meat Bun. Okay. But when dragons reach adolescence, they must have sex with someone they love to meet their needs for growth. If you have really taken in a dragon, I recommend that you sell it right away. No matter how adorable young dragons may be, they are all extremely dangerous when grown. Blue, I know what he will eat. I was joking. I'm crying. Oh my god. Okay. Xiexue was shocked. As soon as Xie Chung came home, she immediately showed this message to her brother. Guga, maybe we should just let it go. Xie Chung frowned slightly. As he was thinking it over, a warm, fuzzy paw suddenly wrapped around his leg. He looked down to see the puppy dragon gazing at him, droopy-eared and chagrined, very innocent and pitiable. Lots of people will spout nonsense on the internet. Xie Chung gave the phone back to Xiexue without taking the matter to heart. No need to pay attention to this. But Xie Chung caught sight of the milk replacement in the corner. He opened a can and held it out to Yu, getting a bit of milk on his fingertips. He asked Yu tentatively, Will you drink this? The puppy dragon walked over and obediently rubbed his head against Xie Chung. He took the milk, hugging it against his chest, and then gave Xie Chung's fingertip a tiny lick. It was a tingly sensation, just like a little puppy. See? Who said he couldn't raise this creature? Xie Qingcheng lifted his hand and patted the puppy dragon's head. Many years later, when a transformed He Yu tore off Xie Qingcheng's clothes and pinned him to the bed, giving him no chance of escape, Xie Qingcheng suddenly remembered the post Xie Shui had shown him. Fucking hell, why hadn't he believed it back then? The ancients hadn't been lying. Indeed, it was true that dragons were lustful by nature. Well, the story continues in Case File Compendium Volume 5, which we will read in 4 months. Oh god. Okay. This is what I chose to do. I've already survived 4 months without QJJ, and now we're going back to it. But, like, oh my god. Okay. Well, again, I'm glad that the cliffhanger that we ended on was not really, like, a super big deal. But I don't know. I don't know what I was expecting to happen. I was kind of half expecting the volume to end, like, still in a flashback. Kind of the way, like, Volume 3 going into Volume 4 was, like, still in the midst of them being in the room flooding and, like, Xie Qingcheng's backstory. I thought it would be something like that. But it was like, nope, we're gonna cap this off. And by the way, get Xie Qingcheng to a hospital right now. Yeah, Henry, right? Crazy, it's been 4 whole months without QJJ. It feels like we started Case File yesterday. I agree. I am very excited to get back into QJJ, like, so excited. And when we get back into it, we will be finishing it because it has only 8 volumes. So we're gonna do 4 more. We're gonna finish QJJ. Then we're gonna read 4 more of Case File, which will not finish Case File because that will get us to Volume 8. We'll... Oh, and then somewhere throw River Bay Road in there somewhere because Volume 8 of QJJ won't be out by the time I'm ready to read it. So there's a lot of it's a long winding path. But yeah, so I am going to be reading River Bay Road at some point, because it's only 2 volumes, and it's something to do while I'm waiting for Henry River Bay Road. I am yippying. That's gonna be an interesting dichotomy. Oh gosh. Yeah, no, that'll be fun. So there was like a brief moment where I was like, is the daughter of the younger sister an important character? But I don't know how old the younger sister is now, and I don't think her daughter would be old enough to, like, play any part in this story. So the thought occurred to me for a split second, and then I was like, that doesn't make any sense. So, I don't know. I don't know where that's going, but, probably it. Yeah. So we're still left not knowing who that woman was who helped them. Blue, you said, I still think that the OG either survived or someone took her face. I am wondering about the someone taking her face. There's some kind of, like, mask thing going on. Possibly multiple characters disguising themselves with, like, a really realistic mask. I'm kind of thinking that, too. Henry, you said, I feel like Hoshia had both so much and 0 development in their relationship. I feel like they've had a lot of development, but because He Yu is, like, further ahead in his path than Xie Qingcheng is, and because of that, Xie Qingcheng is still at the point where he's like, I took a step forward, and I take, like, 5 steps back. But we've gotten, like, a little bit more, like, Xie Qingcheng interiority. We've gotten kind of, like, his perspective basically admitting that, like, he enjoyed having sex with He Yu that one time, and that's kind of why he freaked out and backed off. And he obviously is still suppressing some level of like, care for him. Henry, you said if Hoyu pulls an Avengers 1 Scarlett Johansson, I swear. I don't even remember what happened in that movie. Henry, you said, never mind, I forgot he wrote Hoyu. Yes, exactly. Yeah, Blue, they had a lot of development, but one is repressed and the other one is desperate, so. But, okay. I'm gonna ask y'all a question. Do we want to look at the cover of Volume 5 right now? You might have seen it already. But do we want to do that right now, or do we want to wait because we're not reading it next for a while? Because the cover of Volume 5 is interesting. Oh, Henry, you said you think it's one character, and then they pull the mask off and it's Black Widow. You said, yeah, sure, okay. Alright, we're looking at Volume 5. So, everyone, take a gander at Volume 5. There is definitely some development that happens in this book. Okay. I don't know what's going on there exactly, but it looks like Xia Qingcheng is initiating the kiss. So, oh, yeah, we looked at the colored illustration. It just was like, we were able to look at it so long ago. It feels like it's been forever. Yeah, so I'm really excited about... Hold on, I just noticed something. I swear to God. There's... Wait, are there... No, oh my God. Okay, I thought there were, like, dragon scales in the background of the cover art. But there's, like, a fence, and the fence was creating the illusion of there being scales. Never mind. I don't know if that's intentional or not. Maybe it is. The fire makes me very nervous, but also a life or death situation in my Meat Bun novel? Nah. Yeah, no, I'm nervous about the fire, but I'm excited about Xia Qingcheng being more openly warm with Hoyu. I say warm while they're, like, literally in a fire. Blue, you said the artist messing with us like always. Oh, Henry, you said this is actually the last one I know spoilers for, unless Kichter drops a new video when I have poor self-restraint. Do you mean Volume 5, or do you mean... You said Volume 5, I mean. Volume 5 is the last one you know spoilers for. Henry, you said now you guys can watch the Kichter videos for Volumes 1 to 4. They only read the fan TL till the Titanic scene, so now they're new readers. Okay, so it will just be about the book that they're talking about. That is good to know. Thank you for the confirmation. See, I can't really do that with the QJJ videos because they're spoilery, because they kind of go off the timeline a little bit. But it's good to know that when we come back to reading Case File, I will be able to use the Kichter videos as a reference to, like, remind myself of all the things that happened. Oh yeah, Blue, you said yeah, same, I'm so upset about that. The QJJ videos. I was, like, spoiled for something kind of minor, but it's getting to a point where, like, I think the next QJJ book is about to get into that, and I just have an inkling because of the cover of the book. But it was something where, like, they mentioned it... Wait, because initially I was trying to watch the QJJ videos. Like, I didn't realize, like, how bad it would be. And there was a certain point where one of them said something, and I just, like, stopped, and I was like, no, I'm not doing this anymore. And it's, like... I don't know, it's just something where it's like, that doesn't even happen for another, like, 3 books. I'm so excited for QJJ 5. Do we... I was gonna say, do we want to look at the cover of that too? But I'm actually packed and ready to go to my parents' house for the rest of the weekend through Monday. So I'll be streaming from there Monday's stream when we start QJJ 5. So I currently have that book packed up. But the art for QJJ 5 is, like, so beautiful, and I'm so excited to read it. Blue, you said, I watched 2 minutes. Stitch said, oh, I've read this before. My self-preservation instincts kicked the fuck in. Yeah, that was a good call. Absolutely. Yeah, so what even? I don't know. At this point, no thoughts, head empty, but we'll have plenty of time to stew on the first 4 volumes of Case Files, so maybe we can come up with some kind of theory as to more about what's going on. We've still got the little boy in the heels and, like, all kinds of just, like, weird madness happening, people in disguises, like, I don't know what's going on. It's a lot. I'm pretty sure that there are, like, there's the main bad organization, and then there's some sort of, like, counter organization that might be going against them, or people who know about it going against the organization. I think there's, like, more than one main, like, force in this whole thing, but I don't have, like, specifics to back that up. It just seems like it might be the case. Yeah, these past 4 months breeze past. What is time? I agree. Like, this whole time since I've been streaming, it doesn't feel like things have taken this long. Like, I hit my... Well, it was on March 26th. I hit my 1-year anniversary, because it was on March 26th when I did the first Remnants of Filth stream. And I was just like, it's really been this long? Like, that's crazy. Blue... Oh, no, that was in the Kichter video. Stitch said you need to understand the socioeconomic background to understand the gay sex, or something like that. You remember that correctly. It was, like, about the grain and stuff. We read all of Yuwu. That's crazy. I know. At this point, though, Yuwu being 7 volumes, and some of those last volumes being exceptionally short, Yuwu feels like a short series in my head. Maybe that's just because, like, I finished Arha, and I'm reading things that are longer, so I'm just like, oh, that's no big deal. Nothing. That's nothing. So, yeah, I'll say that we were successful today in avoiding a horrible cliffhanger. Things really ended on a pretty chill note overall, so I feel okay. I feel okay right now, but yeah. So I will see y'all on Monday for QJJ Volume 5. Thank you so much for coming to the stream. Bye.